Welcome to Shift, a college admissions ACT, SAT, and CLT podcast for a changing world. I'm Tyler, the founder of Achievable, and we have affordable ACT, CLT, and SAT courses that include everything you need to ace your exam. A full textbook, tons of review questions backed by our memory enhancing algorithm, videos on key topics, a built in study planner, and full length practice exams. You can get a free trial by going to achievable.me, and if you like it, be sure to use the code podcast to get 10% off at checkout. Let's get started. Today we've got Hyuk Chang with us from AIE, and I'd love if you could introduce yourself and your role at AIE.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I'm an admissions officer with the Academy of Interactive Entertainment, AIE, and we are a 2-year skills-based program that's focused on job training and simulating a studio-based environment so that way our students are most prepared for the industry that they are studying for.
Yeah, very cool. And today, because AIE is a video game focused university, I'd love for you to talk about how to build a great portfolio. And I'm sure this would apply to other types of art universities as well, more creative ones in general. But yeah, just like how do you walk people through this? I mean, I haven't really talked about portfolios before because I'm not an artist. I mean, as you can see by my
Yeah.
bad paintings back there, that I do. My
Ah, they
wife is
they
the
look
good
great.
one usually. I'm curious, yeah, just like where do you start this conversation with people?
Yeah. When it comes to a portfolio, I feel like the word portfolio itself sets people off in a bad direction because when students hear it, they've only heard it thus far, usually in a professional context. So it's when looking at ArtStation or looking at any other sort of online hosting portfolio website, even social media posts like Tumblr replies or whatever. People will post their portfolios, but in reality, what they're showing is a series of finished works. And that's not necessarily the same as a college admissions portfolio. So when it comes to us, what we want to see is a range of work that shows where your skill set is at currently, what you've tried, what you like to do, and degrees of a finished product. So we would like to see at least one finished thing so that way we can go, okay, that's like where you call it, but also seeing that process, seeing where that student goes from point A to point B to point C is the purpose of an admissions portfolio.
Yeah, very cool. So then, I mean, you've already hinted at it a little bit, right? But let's talk about how to build your portfolio. I mean, it sounds like I would have assumed, and I think it's probably what a lot of people assume, that you just want to put your best finished work in there and that's it, right? But it sounds like you would much rather see something else.
It's not to say that we wouldn't like to see those finished and recent pieces, because we still want to see where your skill set is at currently, where your skill set is, where you want to grow from there, because we have had a couple of students who have applied and had, in essence, professional grade portfolios. And the conversation then becomes, well, what do you want out of this program? What do you want to do in terms of progressing from where you are right now to your starting position in the industry? Because while seeing really high quality finished work is always exciting, it does pose questions then of what are you looking to get out of the education? What kind of student are you going to be? There are other considerations that come into play when somebody is delivering, say, that like high quality professional portfolio. So showing something that's in progress, showing works, it's like those math problems that you would have where they want you to show your work. And I was infamously terrible at those. I would just write the answer and never understand why you needed to show your work. But then now on this side of the desk, I'm looking at these portfolios and going, I wish you would show your work. So it feels like a bit of karmic retribution there.
Right. Well, and it shows you how they got from A to Z, which I think is an important part of it, right? Can you talk a bit about like
Exactly.
what are the steps you're looking to see and kind of why, right? Is it like I want to see the wireframes for this reason? What are the things that you want?
Yeah. I mean, not every student has had access to the softwares or different media. And we try to be considerate to that. So when it comes to the portfolios that are being shown and the pieces that are being shared, sketchbooks are always a welcome addition to a portfolio, especially for the people who like to write particular directions for themselves in their sketchbooks. To cite a recent example of a portfolio that crossed my desk, this person had a full round character concept sheet, and on there they had one of my favorite things that I've read in a portfolio thus far, which is dramatic sleeves are a must. And just looking at a portfolio, you get insights into their thought process, their personality, all of these things that relate to you as a student and relate to you as a prospective student at that school rather than just what kind of art skills are you bringing to the table.
Yeah, so how can you, without forcing it, like show more of your personality in
Yeah.
your portfolio?
While it comes, like, art has so many different methods of expression, so that one is a difficult one to answer. But when citing sketchbook examples, what you choose to doodle or scribble tells as much as what you decide to render to a finished state. So, without forcing it, I would say just sharing even ones that you don't know how to progress further. You have it three quarters completed, but that last quarter is evading you for whatever reason. Even that, just put in pieces that have a story of their own. Not to say this is my OC and this is the backstory of that OC, but these are the challenges that I faced while creating this piece of artwork, and these are the skills that I tried to use in executing that idea.
Yeah, and so tell me a bit about also, like you mentioned OC, and I think it's just interesting to talk about kind of like backgrounds, right? So when I say backgrounds, I mean background to a piece of art. So when you are making art, I think a lot of times you're particularly with like character art, or even with like things like landscapes or settings, are envisioning it that way for a reason. And you
Hmm.
have, things. I don't know, like, again, I'm not an artist, but I don't know if this is like a formal process that everybody does, or if just some people get really into it and they're like, his name is Bob and he has a sword on his back because of this. But like, I'm curious.
They absolutely do.
Yeah, well, so I'm curious, like, how can you showcase that in the portfolio? Because I feel like the portfolio is usually just kind of focused on the end product, the graphics.
Yeah. Again, just any sort of like directional notes are always nice to see. I know people, when they think about portfolios, they think strictly the visual artwork rather than any sort of writing samples. So there's actually a lot of successful portfolios I've seen have either an attached text document or even in the description or name of the file, they'll put like little indicators of, say, you didn't necessarily think that an admissions officer was going to see or note the name of this file. So those have, piqued interest and created more conversations in the admissions interview. But to your point, not everybody has the opportunity to then have a conversation about their portfolio. So any sort of inclusion that you can have, because they're going to be receiving the full portfolio. Any sort of artist statement, any sort of ability to advocate for and talk about your process while submitting that portfolio, I would say is extremely helpful.
You mentioned talk about your process while submitting it. When people submit portfolios, is it usually like, please link to your portfolio and then link, or does it come with a place to write about it and kind of like how does that all work?
Yeah, so due to the wide variety of portfolio building sites and strategies that people have now, we're pretty flexible in terms of how we receive those portfolios. So I've had students just email them straight to me. We do have an upload option with our application, but I've been sent over websites or just zip folders. So when it comes to the most successful method, quote unquote, a website is always a safe bet. But also having an external folder, I always suggest to students to have like a USB that you carry around with a folder of your portfolio. So that way you're able to quickly and easily have that copy at hand.
Got it. Yeah, and then I guess just to kind of go back to even like just sort of the big picture, right? So what are
Sure.
like I think within your world, it's probably a lot of like 3D art and like it's either character design, level design, things like that. I'm sure that for different types of art, there's probably like, really good watercolor paintings or whatever it is. But I'm
Yeah.
curious, do you recommend that people tailor their portfolio to the type of school they're applying to and maybe have different ones for different types of schools if they're applying to multiple? Or do you think that it's actually more interesting to see that they did some watercolor, but now they're doing, 3D art, right? Like, are your thoughts on
Hmm.
that?
Yeah, I also just wanted to mention that we focus on the entirety of the game development pipeline. So we also have game programmers who are expected to create a portfolio. We have game designers who
Right.
are expected to create a portfolio. So those portfolios look vastly different. And because of that, the content within those portfolios can also be extremely broad. So for the arts, seeing different media is always exciting. So whether that person has explored with graphite and pencil or like ink or even gone so far as to actually have a fully rendered character model. These are all exciting things to see, but when looking at something like game programming, seeing examples of people who have worked in HTML, Python, Java, these are all valid examples as well, or even just writing samples. So when it comes to game design, that portfolio, we've seen a wide range going from, oh, hey, I've actually created a small game in Unreal following tutorials, or down to the other side of things, which is here are the notes from my D&D campaign. So when it comes to the portfolio, showing variety is a strength of its own.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I mean, you talked about, building projects, and I mean, I'm curious. I think quite a bit of things that are more involved, like building a video game, might involve more than one person. How do
Oh,
you
definitely.
include things like that in your portfolio where you were like, maybe let's say like a minor contributor to a larger project?
Yeah, there's plenty of opportunities to talk about your level of involvement. So, when it comes to, say, a game project, hopefully there's a credits page of some sort so we can see what role that particular applicant filled in that group. We also have that admissions interview where we ask them to expand a bit. If it is a group project, what was your specific involvement? How did you work on that team? How did, your experience look compared to what we're seeing in this portfolio?
Mhm. Right, got it. Okay. Yeah, and then what am I missing here? I feel like there's probably more to it about like building a great portfolio, right? I mean, what are some things that I haven't
Yeah.
mentioned yet that you feel like we should be talking about?
I would say be aware of the amount of time that's allocated for talking about the portfolio, because that will also change how much you include in your portfolio.
Okay.
So, for example, our admissions interviews, we block out an hour, and about half of that time is dedicated to talking about the portfolio.
Mhm.
So, you want enough pieces to be able to have a conversation for the roughly half hour that we allocate for that. So, we urge people to put in, say, like 5 pieces that you can really talk about, or 10 pieces that we just kind of breeze through. And ultimately, it's an opportunity for that student to curate an experience for the person looking at the portfolio. So, having some self restraint in that is also a really great trait to show, because we have had students where they're sending over a 13 gigabyte folder, and that's a compressed zip folder. Like, that's a little excessive for the amount of time that we have. But students should be sending in enough that they can talk about it and a wide enough variety that it showcases your skill set as an applicant.
Yeah, well, and put another way, you should probably submit things that you want to talk about. Like, I think that maybe they might be like, oh, I feel like I have to include this, but I don't really like this one. I mean, do you? That's actually an interesting, like, this little side tangent. Do you ever have that happen in interviews where students are like, oh, I hated this one, but I felt like I had to include it, and like,
Yes.
how does that go for you? And do you think that's healthy and good, or are you just kind of like, like you should really focus to what you are excited about?
I would argue that even the piece that you don't like has some merit,
Mhm.
right? So if you have the opportunity to have an admissions interview, you have the opportunity to talk at length about a variety of the pieces that you submit, showing a finished or maybe even unfinished product that you just hated the process of making, that has a story attached to it too, and we would love to hear it. Now, if it's I wouldn't necessarily say it's something that you should go in bad mouthing all the way, but if it's a piece that you feel like you should include, there are reasons that that student thought to include that. Whether it's the level of completion, the skill set that was showcased, the level of success that they feel like it had, there are reasons that they want to include it. And there are reasons they felt that compulsion to include it.
Got it. Yeah. Well, and I feel like there's also reasons like that it shows your growth, I guess, as an artist in that specific moment, or that, it's kind of a broad statement, but like you can overcome adversity in a project.
Yes. We've had portfolios where students include their first attempt at, say, like programming, their first like solo Java project. And that is just as valuable to see as the compiled scripts that they're doing at the time of their application. Because not only do we want to see somebody who has a strong skill set coming in, but we want to see that that person is challenging themselves. Because at the end of the day, there are some folks where it comes very easily, very naturally to them. But have they challenged themselves? Have they actually been challenged in order to get to where they are now? And the process of that challenging is far more interesting on the admission side of the table.
Got it. Yeah, that's great. Anything else that you feel like we haven't covered yet?
I guess it's more of a word of caution
Yeah.
related to our earlier conversation, but if you are including, say, fan work, I get that question a
You mean
lot.
like
Like, oh,
like
hey,
uh
if
like
it's,
I drew Sonic the Hedgehog.
yeah, here's my Sonic OC. Do not steal. That type of situation, you can absolutely include pieces like that, but as with any sort of suggestion for a portfolio, don't let it take over the portfolio. Don't come into it expecting to only talk about that and only wanting to talk about that. A portfolio is a conversation, and you don't have every opportunity to speak for your portfolio either.
Mhm.
So you have to let it stand on its own merit. So it should paint a picture of where you've been, where you want to go, the skills you have right now. And if you're able to expound on that by having an interview or by having an accompanying statement, that's great. But at the same time, not every school is going to give you that opportunity.
Mhm.
So make sure that your portfolio is balanced in such a way that it represents you well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that it also, you want to show multiple sides of yourself, right? So that
Exactly.
they can see that you're going to be able to grow and expand as you are
Hmm.
there, and not just like continue down the one path. I think that's particularly important for an art school, is my guess.
Yeah. And I think that that's also just widely applicable when we're just looking at post-secondary education is certainly everybody is coming in with a particular set of experiences and skills, but it's that willingness to learn and to grow and to change that makes for an interesting applicant pretty much across the board.
Great. Well, thank you so much. This has been Shift, a college admissions podcast for a changing world, hosted by Tyler from Achievable with Hyuk Chang from AIE. And you can get a free trial of Achievable's ACT and CLT courses by going to achievable.me and use the code podcast to save 10%.